Once upon a time, the Lord encountered me. And the Lord said, if I put what he said in human time, if you say it as slowly as possible, it will be 9 seconds. He said, the youth. He said it 4 times. He said, use your power of sight to deliver them from distraction, and I will open the gates of nations to you. That was December 2009 that Jesus said this. When Jesus said that to me in December 2009, then I was working in the petroleum industry. That was when I received the first mandate. You know, an apostle is a sent one. Don't claim you're an apostle if Jesus has not sent you. It's not a title. It's a sent one. One that is multi-gifted, whose life is summed up in the fact that there is a message he is sent to bear. That's what Elijah was. The Tishbite. Tishbite means messenger. So Elijah is a description of an apostle. You don't have the honors that accompany that function if Jesus himself has not sent you. Right? So the first errand Jesus was sending me was to the youth of my generation. And that, meanwhile, I was a preacher a long time before 2009. In fact, I started preaching formally in 1994. Were you born then? You were born in 1994? How old were you then? You were 2 years. Okay. I went to Bible school then. That was the year I went to Bible school. So I was a preacher, I was a teacher. I was a teacher of the Word of God. And I was in the office of the teacher for a very long time until Jesus sent me. The moment Jesus sends you, he gives you authority. There must be an evidence that you are going to present that you were sent. So the economy of the grace of God on your life is bound to shift if Jesus sends you. So Jesus encountered me and commissioned me to go to the mission field of the youth of my generation. Then I was working in the oil industry. And because the presence of God that accompanied that encounter that I had was so palpable, when I came back from that trip, I drew up a budget because I used to pay for my tickets in January. All my flight tickets, I pay for them in January. So I used to take like how many flights a year. Those days I used to keep the boarding passes just to be able to count how many trips I did, until they became a burden in my apartment in Lagos. So I used to do flights for 1.7 million to 2.3 million annually. Can you imagine that? Okay, you can't imagine. Not today, I'm talking about years ago. So I hopped from campus to campus. Ahmadu Bello University, University of the one in Mina, Foot Mina, the one in Sokoto. What's the name of it? So I've gone round, not once. And in the process, I went around Nigeria about 6 times. The reason why I was doing what I was doing, and people were saying that I was a fool, that I was going to involve myself with youth ministry and there's no money there. But you see, the issue was not about money, it was that Jesus spoke to me. And the proof that he spoke was the errand that I was running. Just like Simeon was waiting for the consolation of Israel because God had given him a promise that he was going to visit Israel in his generation, in his lifetime. All right? So many people called me and said, oh, you are doing a great job. It's just that your mission is not sustainable. When when you do ministry, the financial aspect must be in good shape so that you will know that there is some prospects attached to your labor. Meanwhile, Jesus didn't discuss financial issues. Jesus just came and gave an instruction. You see, you can allow that moment die and you are no longer incubating it in your heart. This man kept, I don't know for how long he kept that moment alive. But when we read about Prophetess Anne, you will see that that moment was more than 60 years. And for some of you here, God just spoke to you last year. And the word is no longer alive in your heart, because you have allowed circumstances and situations to become more real than what God had spoken into your heart. So your heart is no longer an incubator. So even though the potential of the encounter you had sustained a shelf life that can expand for 1,000 years if God so wishes, your womb became a grave for what was alive. So I kept doing that. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, preaching here, go NCCF, I'll move here, move to campuses. I was doing what God sent me to do. Meanwhile, this work had started then. But in order for me to do that one faithfully, I had to hand over so that I could do that one. Now, is it reasonable in the current training we have as pastors today? Is there a provision for you to be in active pastoring and there's a congregation under you and you hand over? You are not old, you are not sick, you are not about to die. But you see, the reason why it is so is because there is a word that is alive inside. So I left the stage and I began to do the one he told me to do. Meanwhile, there was a time I was pastoring here and I felt so fulfilled. And then that instruction now came, and pastoring here was no longer as fulfilled as being on the field. So I had to do the needful to create an administrative system through which this one can be going and I can